and we may have to modify the agenda a little bit before we follow the agenda. So, and because Chancellor Nan will have to leave for another meeting before 2 o'clock, so we would like to after, I think we need to move him maybe to before our written report. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay, anyone to second? So let's say move it to after my report, then written reports between 4 and 5. Would that be okay with you guys?
Yes,
So so you second.
I'll second.
So we can just informal vote. Is it okay to modify the agenda? If you say you approve it, say yay, raise your hands. Okay, thank you. So Junie, I'm not sure about Junie.
I think we're good.
Okay, so we do so. So we're going to have a roll call, obviously. So everybody here except a couple of faculty senator co-chairs who told me they have commitment, they cannot be here. So Junie, I know Junie, you are here. So you will do the attendance, Junie, right? Okay.
I'm thinking no.
You're muted,
Yeah.
Julie, if you're talking.
Yeah,
Right.
can you hear us, Julie?
Okay, Josh, maybe you first. You like that, Junie.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Well, we're going to approve the minutes from March 7th, 2023. So before we have a motion, do you have any suggestion, correction, or comments for the minutes?
A motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah. So anyone second?
I second.
Okay. Dr. Fine Chaudhary, you second. So we're going to vote to approve the minutes. If so, say yes or nay. Yes or nay. If you say approve it, raise your hand. So yeah.
All in favor?
Okay. So in favor. Okay.
So approved.
Okay. Approve. Number 4, okay, I will brief. Good afternoon, everyone. As you know, our March issue of Faculty Senate updates and the FIY newsletter went out to all the faculty members at the end of last month, that means March. I would like to express my appreciation to my colleague, Mr. Mike Bauman and Mr. George Freak, and also Dr. Bethany Rita and Ilan Jokovsky and Junie Ted for their team efforts to help this issue of newsletter during this March. In addition, I have several business matters to report to you very briefly. First, on March 23rd, I attended a panel discussion on how faculty support underserved students, which was organized by Black Students Council. Black Student Council is part of the USG, undergraduate student government on campus. And second, on March 29th, I had a meeting with Associate Chancellor Wendell Williams on students' recruitment, retention, and graduation rate. This is directly related to our faculty senator ad hoc committees work on student success. You know that the ad hoc committee, the first group is student success. Third, on March 31st, as an observer, I attended the ad hoc group 3 subcommittee 3's discussion on faculty quality and faculty compensation, which was facilitated by the group leader, Dr. Ilan Jokovsky and Dr. Chairman Bay. Number 4, on April 3rd, that means yesterday, I attended 2 meetings to represent the faculty senate. One is the planning and training meeting for April's active shooting and drill, that means organized by EOC, Emergency Operating Center. And also, as one of the contingencies heads, I attended the interview of the first candidates for the chief marketing officer. Pretty much that's my report. Any question for me? Thank you. Question, comments? Okay, very simple, easy, no question, no comments. I'm going to invite Chancellor Nan. So you will give us any update, maybe you have a few questions, then whenever you want to leave, you are welcome to do so.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Hope everyone's doing well. It's April. It's hard to believe it's going really fast. And as you know, as the weather gets warmer, I just got back meeting with RAs and RDs about some of the things we want to make sure we're mindful of in the dorms. There's a lot of activity that's going on after hours. So we're just trying to make sure students know we want to get to the finish line in May as safe as we possibly can. And sometimes I feel like I'm sounding like their father over there. I think they're probably sick of me sounding like that, but just trying to make sure we keep everyone safe. So we had an incident in the early hours of this morning involved 9 students. So these were folks that were from the surrounding area that were not affiliated with the university. But we let 1 or 2 of them into the dorm. So we're really talking over there about if you are having a guest that's not a SIU student, we need to make sure the appropriate checks are in place with IDs and that if in fact your person that comes along with you does something, you're accountable for that. So having some of those discussions and just making sure that we're safe. We do have 3 individuals in jail right now. That again are non-SIU students that we're able to apprehend. And it looks like we're going to be arresting a few more. So luckily our folks are on top of it. We do have some cooperation from our students who have been able to see who some of these folks are. And it may include, at the end of the day, it may include 1 or 2 of our students. We're going to find that out here probably when I get off the call. But it's a 0 tolerance, as we tell students, for fighting. It's a 0 tolerance for anything like drugs or definitely firearms or those kinds of things that are happening. So they'll be on high alert. We'll have an officer posted outside of Schneider pretty much all evening. And again, we made sure the RAs know that we are here. Even me personally, we're here to respond to any things that they may have in question. So that's a quick update from the alert you saw today, which brings me to the active threat drill. And I've got to stop saying active shooter. Our consultant said I have to call it active threat, not active shooter. So I'm on an old terminology, I guess. But needless to say, that event will start to send out, we'll continue to send out more information about that activity. But I do want to share with you, give you a sneak peek of what it is. 2 things that you really want to make sure you do between now and that drill is if you have not updated your cell phone information to get the alert, please do that as soon as you can. We're also thinking about a situation where every new employee would already be in that system and they would have to opt out of it. So, I know they may not like that to begin with, but who wouldn't want an alert? Right. So hopefully people won't opt out once they're already officially in. So we are going to change that. Right now, you have to actually manually put your number in there, and it's a real hassle. You would think you'd already be in there, but you're probably not if you have not gone into your Saluki net and those kinds of things. So please go in there and do that, because that is how the official alert will come through, in addition to the email that you probably get already. But sometimes that alert to me just seems a little faster, so you don't have to be in front of your monitor checking in. So essentially that drill will simulate as a real drill, and it is a drill, but the alert will go out. It will talk about where the threat is. You know, if the threat, for example, is in Fainer, it's going to tell you it's in Fainer. And the other part of what you're seeing in the announcements that came out from Chief today is about what you need to do. Really, this drill is about what do I do if this happens, because we don't want people worried about that. Well, it's a run, hide, fight. It's that simple. It's run, hide, fight. But years ago, they were giving too much information about what to do. It's confusing people. And do I lock a door? Do I do that? If you get the alert on that day of the drill and it tells you it's in your building, then you need to hide. It's that simple. You need to, if you're in the classroom, you need to close the door. If you're in the classroom, you need to stay there, right? You don't need to, at that point, if it's in your building, you don't want to run out because you could put yourself in danger. Same thing if it's in Fainer, but I'm over here in Anthony Hall, I don't want to run out. I could run right into the shooter, right, out on campus. So I would want to stay here until I get the all clear from the authorities. And so we're trying to keep it as clean and as simple as possible, so folks don't feel like they have to be too creative in the midst of something. If it were to happen in real life, this is what we would want you to do. So the video is out there. We're circulating that. So folks know about it. It may, in fact, happen in the morning, hint, hint, hint. And if it does, it's simulating a drill. So yes, if it's in your building, it may disrupt it for an hour or two, right? Just like a real situation would. So we have to simulate that way, or else we don't get the best results on what we can do better. Right. So if students are coming to class and they all get the text and you say, oh, what do we do? You hide, you stay right where you are, you close your door, and that's where you are. It's a real drill. And so I want to make sure, in order for us to get the kind of critique that we need from the company, we've got to simulate it so that we're ready, right? We've got to be ready. And there are already some things that we know are not working. And so we're going to highlight that. We're going to be transparent about what didn't work in this drill. You're going to know exactly what we can do better next time. It's no secret. It won't be us trying to hide anything. We're going to say, I'll bring it back to you and say, hold me to that. I'll bring it back and say, here's some things on the checklist that they graded us bad on, or they said we could have done a better job of. And that's really what we want. It's not an indictment on anybody, but we just want to be safe. So that information, I know Mark and Bob, I think they just met with the deans. Is that right, Dr. Morris? Did you guys meet with the deans yet? Or is that coming up? I think you're muted. You're still muted there. They still have you muted. So if you can hear me, did you guys meet with the deans? Okay, yes, there you go. So that they'll start to communicate that information out there. You should see more of it. So again, if there are any questions you have, let us know. But we want to have the best drill we can possibly have. We've had this in the works since the fall. So this is not a knee jerk to anything that's occurred. We've been planning for this, but these events take so many people. You'll have on campus, you'll see some folks that may scare you a little bit because they're going to be armored up. They're going to be dressed up. It's going to look like it's real. You'll have some students or actors simulating laying down, right, in certain areas. So they're going to treat it as a live drill. What I did tell Chief, we don't want to shoot off any rounds or anything like that. They actually had in the drill to shoot a fake round or something. We're not going to do that because I think that will turn it into something else. Okay, so that's part of the drill we X'd. So we don't want the live shot to start everything off. We don't need that. So, but if you have questions between now and then, let us know. But we do want to make sure we're prepared for something like this. You know, it's so unfortunate. It's happening everywhere around us. So enrollment update, you're probably noticing a lot of tours with a lot of students walking around campus, a lot of high school yellow buses that are out there. This again is what we call our closing season, our yielding season. So with a lot of the students that are showing up, we're trying to close the deal and make sure they register for the fall semester. Applications are up, admits are up, they continue to be up. So there are no concerns at this point, although it's still early. We still have several weeks to go. Our orientation numbers we got a report today are up 20% for orientation. So that's another indicator of students that are coming. And so again, for us, it's going to be about closing the deal with those students. So it's going to be very important down the stretch that we continue to work on that. There is a policy that was, or not a policy, there was a recommendation that came to the cabinet this morning, hot off the press. And I want to make sure Dr. Morris and Dr. Morgan have been working with our group and folks on this. It was something we talked about a couple of months ago on this call with looking at our academic probation policies in terms of what we do with students that are on probation. Our actually incoming provost had a great suggestion on some research that they've done at other places. So this is Dr. Tucker, where they're calling it academic warning because probation is more of a trigger word for students. I thought that was a great idea and we're going with it. So we're going to change that term of probation to more warning. And ultimately, obviously, if students, if we can't get them back to where they need to be, it results in something we all don't want. But it does soften it up a little bit and it becomes more developmental for us to be able to work with those students to get them off of those warnings so they don't hit those levels. So Dr. Morris, do you have any, I know you're dealing with volume or sound, and do you have, is your computer working okay to come off mute yet?
I believe so.
Oh, there you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you have, can you share some of the things that were recommended today?
Sure.
You have the ability to do that?
Show that. Let me see.
We
if I can
won't
get
go
that.
through it all, but I just want to hit some high points. And this is something Dr. Lee or Dr. Morris, you can send to Dr. Lee so he can review it. And any feedback is welcome. We're also sharing it with the USG president, with Isaiah Overton, to get some feedback there as well. Again, just to refresh everyone's memory, there were institutions like Oklahoma State and Northwestern, other places that were out there that give students a slightly longer runway. Our policy was if you come in your first semester, you had to make a 2.0. If you didn't do that, we would suspend you on the next semester if you didn't make a 2.0. Most universities in that first year have it. Mark, if you want to go scroll down, it'll probably sync in with what others are doing. Can you scroll down on that? There it is. So most are looking at what we've come up with on these 20 to 29 hours. So it gives that student the ability, if they are in fact less than a 2.0, they get a notice. And that triggers us to really work in with that student as best we can with different resources and tutoring and those kinds of things. And they're still here as long as they're not less than a 1.5. Am I reading that right, Dr. Morris?
That's correct. Yep. For that, those within that first category. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that gives you kind of a sense of the runway. Most places have this model that, again, it gives their students the ability where they can not only identify who they are, work with those students, but then make sure that, obviously if they're going below those numbers, they get catapulted into a whole nother category. The idea is for us not to go below the far right column with those students. Before you graduate, you obviously have to have a 2.0, but that's the idea. We'll send this, Dr. Morris, Dr. Lee, we'll send it to you so you can have it. Any comments or questions you have, we'd love to see it. We think this will help our students, and most importantly, it will direct us to who needs the help, right? It will identify those who are on warning when they get those notices, what they have to do to work with us to get them up to where they need to be. This also mirrors the financial aid satisfactory academic progress model. So institutions typically have their probationary models match their financial probationary models. So this connects to it, where it allows the student, again, not to lose immediate aid in the first semester or first year, as long as they're following on track with this policy. So, or this practice rather, or procedure, or whatever we're calling this. But we do need some feedback from this group And I know, Mark, you're going to be working with Dr. Lee on that to make sure it hits all the right people in groups for the right approvals.
Mhm.
So we won't do anything until we actually get some feedback and some direction. So thank you for that, Mark. We'll send it around on that. The only other update I have is tomorrow, be in Springfield for our Senate hearing. So we had our House hearing a couple of weeks ago. I think I gave this group our update there. That went extremely well. Got general questions about our MAP program and what we do with AIM High and those kinds of things. We'll meet with the Senate tomorrow morning. They have a few questions that are pretty identical to what the House was asking us. I don't think there's anything out of the ordinary that's coming from the Senate. It's still on the table, obviously, if we can get to the end of the session, where we would be at about 5.5 million to the good for state appropriations. Our hope is that that is going to happen. But again, that's why we're in Springfield, is to just really stress the importance of why we need those funds and how we would use those funds. They are asking those questions about how we would use it. Our response, or mine typically, is we would do that for any type of raises or ways to catch up in an equity process to help our employees. So not getting any pushback with that when that comes up. There is a fee matter that we are going to be putting on the books in April for the board meeting. We are not recommending an increase in tuition. We've kept ours essentially flat for about the last 5 years. I think the last time we had an increase was 5 years ago, or maybe even longer now. So we've not increased tuition. We've had a small bump in a fee before. We're recommending a fee increase for the fully online students. So not the general population of students. We're not suggesting any fee increase for those students. Right now, we have students who take classes fully online that pay considerably less. So giving examples, $120 per credit hour for an on-campus student. That's what they're paying. For an off-campus or online student, they're at about $72.60, if you will. So we're thinking of moving that up, not to $120, but moving it up closer to about a $6 or $7 increase. And here's the rationale. We're really trying to beef up our SIU extended campus and our SIU online offerings to target more non-traditional students to increase enrollment. And, you know, if we're going to do that, our academic areas need the financial means, right, to be able to service those students that we're talking about. Susan Wegman's office needs it, like a Dean Morgan would need it, or Dean Chang. All of our deans, as they're trying to grow their enrollment, need that support that comes along with it. So the fee structure, the amount that we've calculated, will really help us be able to hire, whether it's student success coaches or advisors, or help with paying faculty. Any of those things is what we would be doing with the increased cost, nothing else. That cost would go directly to supporting the fully online students, so it doesn't creep into the on-campus groups. For example, we can't have advisors and other folks having to worry about close to 2,500 online students when they're focused on the campus students here. So we've got to separate that out and create more of a pricing structure there that helps that. So you'll hear more about that. We are talking to, again, USG and some online student reps to make sure we have their blessing on that, to give them the cost involved in it. But that's something we would push to the April meeting. You would hear about it, but I want to make sure you're not thrown off going, oh, wait a minute, you're increasing the fees for students. No, the traditional on-campus student fee is going to stay the way it is. We're only looking at that online student. So I want to make sure that that is separated out there, and we're not taking it up to 120. So, you know, again, we understand there's a financial sensitivity all the way around. We want to be mindful of that. So it falls in line essentially with what we've got some other places doing. And that, for me, concludes my updates and report. I want to give a big shout out to our faculty over in Mi'kmaq, or Dean Chang and our faculty were there last night for the Bob Odenkirk event. It was a wonderful event. Okay, Scott, you were there. I mean, that was awesome. He's an awesome alum, and he shared so much knowledge with our students. And it was good to see our faculty from that particular school or college be able to celebrate in him receiving his honorary degree and the other recognition. So thanks to those folks there, and that concludes my report.
Okay, thank you so much. Did I mute myself? No, you're. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I see you open here and muted as we look at you.
Oh, okay.
I can hear you. We can hear you.
Good. Thank you very much for your information and also summary, and any colleagues have any question for either Chancellor Nang or Dr. Morris, especially with regarding academic suspension policy.
I have
Yeah,
something. It's not about the academic suspension policy. I think that looks great actually, and will be very, very helpful going forward. I just want to quickly mention the run numbers, which, you know, I'm not a policy, which, you know, I'm not a fan of, but I've come to accept it, which is good. My concern is actually communication to the students and to the advisors. So I've been talking with our CALPS advisor who advises our micro students, and she says she was not informed of this, the new run number policy, until last week. And then I had my most recent advisee in my office on Monday, and he said he had not been informed about this at all. So I'm just a little concerned about the communication between what's going on and the students. So that's my only comment.
Oh, that's a good comment. Dr. Morris, can you talk about some of the communication efforts? It sounds like there's a leak in the pipeline of communication.
So I missed some of it. I'm sorry. It tells me I have an
she-
unstable internet connection, so I apologize.
Yeah, she was saying that there was an advisor in the CALPS area, I think, that had not heard about this shift in what we're doing with who sees students and you know who's actually doing what. You guys talk about how you guys have communicated that through the deans to then how's that happen? What communication?
Sure.
Is
Yeah, we sent out a memo to all academic advisors. This was back in early March, at least, if my memory serves me correct. If not February, we're notifying them of the individuals, the students who would have run numbers and those that would not, the various classifications for those student groups. And we've met with all of the advisors, particularly the chief academic advisors, going through the ins and outs of how to make sure that we are serving the students in the best way that we can, and getting the message out to the students as well, so that there won't be any confusion on their end come time for registration. And so between those various meetings, and we've probably met, I'd say, gosh, at least 4 times, if I'm not mistaken, to go over the run numbers and how to execute that and get that moving forward for everyone. That the communication is out there. Communication is ongoing with respect to that. We even talk about that within our Dean's Council too, and explaining the procedure that's in place.
So maybe, Dr. Morris, especially, you know, it's spring and things are moving fast. Maybe there's another sort of follow-up when we get into May, where I think you guys had a larger meeting that included everyone you were talking about, but maybe there's another recap, just a refresher, because folks are going to be going fast and furious between now and in May or commencement. But maybe with the deans leading it, with their schools, and, you know, I'm not suggesting you or Bob now, but really making sure the deans lead it within their particular area. So it's really clear of, and also getting any feedback for what may not be working, so that way we can really hear from them now. And that may address some of that so we don't have the torch burning out.
That's exactly. So and that's a great point, Chancellor. What we have been providing, and we need to come back to that because now we're in the swing of registering, is putting out something that's more descriptive for the colleges to follow and pushing that out through the deans meeting with their leadership teams within their college to make sure that it is clear. And that leadership team, of course, would include their R&Rs and their academic advisors. And so we've gone through that process for them and kind of describing these are the best practices to implement, but we do understand that some colleges have some particular situations that will better fit their needs, and they're more than welcome to utilize the customization for their processes as much as they need to, not deviating from the best practices, but incorporating those best practices and fitting them in with their respective students and the student needs. And so we're certainly going to circle back and get a meeting with them within the next week to see how it's going and see what improvements we need to make moving forward.
Because I know the biggest piece, and Dr. Lee, I see the biggest piece was that even with the model that's in place, there's nothing that prevents anyone from still reaching out and talking to a student.
Yes.
And that's really the key, is there's no rule that says you can't reach out to them, even if that's a student that's flying high, doing well, and may not need it. There's still a reach out that folks can do. Dr. Lee, I'm sorry. You got your hand
really
up.
quickly, can you include, or at least, I don't know if you can, but can you include the advisors for the departments as well? So part of the problem, right, is I'm not an official CALPS advisor, but I advise the micro students, and so all the information sort of filters down. I'm the last person to get any of this information, and it would just be great to have a little bit more, because it's a bit confusing.
I agree, and I'm going to stress again, Dr. Morris, that's got to come from the dean.
It's got to.
And it doesn't need to come from our purview. I mean, you need to have that fresh information at all times from the dean. And that way you're not out of the loop. I mean, the job you do, you're more valuable than us over here. We don't have a clue about who you're talking to and who needs the information. So I see Dr. Morris writing that down, but Thank you for that. It is helpful.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you, Bethany. I do have two questions, one for Dr. Mark Morris, one for Chancellor Nan. The first question is about the academic suspension policy. I know you are going to send us, okay. And I have not examined our resolution in the past year. I know in the summer we talked about suspension policy. So do you need any action resolution from faculty senator for what you present to us today, Dr. Morris?
Yeah, we would love to get your thoughts on it. Feedback. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Feedback from the faculty senate to get the thoughts on it and internet connection. Okay, good. And we would also welcome any comments that you have on it. That'll be helpful for us as we begin to formulate that. And as we get through the process, it would be great as a sign for the campus and your supporting this initiative for the academic standing policy and guidelines to perhaps pass another resolution speaking to that. That would be helpful as well in getting campus involvement and campus buy-in.
Yeah, and I'll just be honest with you, if for some reason you don't, we're not gonna keep moving it forward. So some glaring thing you see, that's why we want to make sure you guys know you got the power on this one.
Sure. As soon as we receive from you, I'm going to ask Jennifer Walker, the interim chair of undergraduate education policy committee. They will work on it quickly, hopefully. If I do not know whether if it's not this month, hopefully maybe pretty soon they will have a resolution. Should be very simple, easy. Make sure faculty senate will have a voice, have a simple vote. If that's okay with you, that will make it more
That's
impactful.
fine. Yeah, that's fine. That sounds great. And Dr. Morris, I would share some of those institutions as well. Any type of research data, not just this form, because the form just tells you what the recommendation is, but any behind the scenes work on schools that have similar policies. I know you guys have that. Did that come through? Could you hear me on that one?
Yep.
Yeah.
You want any background data that? we
Yeah, you
have
may
and from other-
yeah, share the homework or the research that went into looking at other schools. That may be helpful for them as they consider this. And I know with USG, we've talked to the president there. He seemed to be supportive, but we did let him know, we've got to make sure between USG, Faculty Senate, and us, we all got to be on the same page with this one, or else it won't work. So he understands that it's not a done deal until we can get the stakeholders to look at it.
Good. Thank you. The next question may be for both of you, primarily for Johnson and Mann, about the faculty compensation. And we know that your office work very hard for internal equity issue. Because we are now ad hoc committee, and the third group is chaired by Dr. Inan Jokovsky and Dr. Bay on faculty compensation, because in order to raise our rank, faculty compensation and faculty quality and faculty student ratio is important. So some faculty members raised the issue about the compensation, and obviously we know in the past 2 years, and thank you so much for giving us 2% raise. Last year, this academic year, and last academic year and this academic year, which is good. Now, the question is that there's some of the faculty members are curious about the criteria of percentage you give to other administrators. We know that for chancellor, obviously that's transparent information, but for those deans and chairs, how did you give like a raise to them? And we make sure that there is no more gap between faculty administration. That's the issue raised by a few faculty members. Perhaps if you can give us some update if you can.
Yeah, to date, no raise has been given to any administrator on our cabinet except for the 2% that everyone else has received. So there's not been anyone on my cabinet that's got any type of a special raise or bump that reports directly to me. The folks who have come in the door obviously negotiate their salary. Those are people like Cheryl Tucker and some of the other folks. But as far as folks who have been here, I've got a few folks now on my team that their contract is coming up that's due. And essentially what I've been saying, I can say it publicly with you here, what I've been saying is that they fall in line with the entire university when we get 2%. So no more, no less. There's not a, hey, you've been here 2 years, we're giving you a bump now. That's not how it's working. That's not what I do. So even if they're on my team now, they get the same 2% that everyone else would get. There are 2 people on my team inside their contracts that there is an incentive base. It's kind of like our basketball coach, and there's an incentive in there that's based on some measurable goals. So there is a piece there for them, but that's 2 out of maybe 8 of the folks that I have on my team, just in the area that they're in. But that's essentially how it happens here. As far as our faculty are concerned, there are 2 areas that I think we need to focus on pretty quickly. First area, I think there's some work that's already being done. Dr. Marsh, you and I talked about it, and Dr. Lee, we did as well. The internal equity faculty piece. So step 1 is like we did with A&P and Civil for last fall, we've got to look at how we compare to each other as it relates to faculty. And obviously that's some work that we can do. And I think you guys have done some work. I think we're just waiting to see what work you've done and match that with what we have with HR, and then figure out if we have faculty who are in areas that are not being paid appropriately, that we get them elevated to where they should be, like we did with A&P and Civil. That's step one. Step two, this is a larger step, and I'll be honest with you, it's going to take, for step two to happen, it's going to probably take us maybe a year or two to get there. We need to look at step two is how we have our faculty compare to the market. So the first step is inside, right? How do we compare to each other? The second step is outside. Coupa data, looking at faculty salaries at similar doctoral research universities like ours. We've got to get there at some point. And that's our step two. It takes a little longer, but we've got to at least see how much that's going to cost us. And that's the big $1 million+ question is, once we compare ourselves to other universities, what's the cost? That's what I'm dying to know. I have a good idea about step one, phase one, about what it's going to cost us to adjust. I've seen some preliminary stuff out there. Same thing with A&P. I knew it was going to cost us shy of about $500,000. It was about $300,000-$400,000 to adjust those groups. I think here it's going to be maybe a little bit more because those salaries are higher than the A&P and Civil salaries. So that work, I guess I just need to know, I think you have a committee that's looking at or has some data on that. And if we can get together with me, you, and Dr. Morris and Dr. Morgan, the sooner the better. If we can get together and look at what you have and start to dig into HR about how we're going to look at, what we need to do to adjust, that would be helpful for at least this phase one.
That's good. Thank you. I know Dr. Mike Eagles and Dr. Brian Chowdhury, they're on the internal equity task force. Last month, they did a presentation to the faculty senate about the data, which is helpful. Any other questions from other colleagues, EC members? I know. Yes, Dr. Chowdhury. Yeah.
So, Chancellor Lane, this is Farhan Chowdhury here. So we heard about merit raises that's coming along. Is there any update on that? Is the rumor that I heard?
Yeah, so we talked, great question. We talked, this was probably now late fall. I think I mentioned it here that we were getting I would need some recommendations for how we wanted to do merit. I definitely didn't want to decide that myself. So I've seen it done a couple of different ways, but I need to make sure we have the input of this group to decide what merit model we want to use. And this is just the merit for faculty. This is not merit for staff. So, I'm open to a model, especially with your committee, tacking this onto it. If you want to lay out what a merit pool would look like among the deans to be able to disperse to faculty who are obviously worthy of merit, how would we decide? I would rather you guys come up with that than us, because I've seen it happen where if we do it, it's a doom loop, and then it becomes a popularity contest, or it's not based on anything and a dean gets hammered. So, I'm open if you want to lay out some models that you think are maybe working at other places. I have some ideas, but we thought the merit piece, one, we need to deal with the equity first before merit, or else we'll kind of get further out of whack. So merit is kind of secondary to the equity piece. So if we can get the equity study out and get some numbers on that, I think we can push into merit as early as looking at something and not dispersing it, but looking at what it would look like in the summer, and then teeing it up for the next fiscal year for folks to have a pool of dollars to give. So we're probably, I know this will sound like a long time, we're probably talking about merit in a fiscal year. We're in fiscal year 2023 now. We're getting ready to set 2024. So we probably missed that boat, if you know what I mean. So it's probably going to be fiscal year 2025. But by then, I think we'll have enough work in the equities done where we're not throwing people more out of or having more salary compression or other issues around adjusting people. And now we've got to adjust them again because we gave merit and other things. So hopefully that answers your question there.
Thank you so much. Chair.
Thank you. Any other question from colleagues here or online? Yes, Dr. Morris?
I just want to say something real quick, if I may, on the merit piece. The other thing to think about as operating papers are being formulated, and we are getting some, and hopefully you're getting those in the Faculty Senate also for your review, is that's a piece that is included in our operating papers according to the collective bargaining agreement. So as the faculty begin to think about what that is and that discussion is had, incorporating some of those thoughts and ideas into the operating papers would be good, whether that's at the school level or the college level. So I just wanted to put that out there too.
That's a great point. And, Mark and Bob, they commend them. They've been working really hard. Dr. Lee, you gave us this warning, probably 2 years ago, that we were not always following that operating paper, and some folks were getting out of bounds or out of line with it. So I know that they've done a good job making sure that we have that in place and that we have folks, some are new that are coming on board, but they're aware of it and that they don't violate it. So I know that work has been done with Dr. Morris and that group that's been here over the last couple of months. So we'll keep working on that.
Just a question about the operating paper. I know in the past year we have not received any new one, and obviously text process I have not got anything from Dr. Juni Anawanis, maybe something, or have the faculty senate missed anything? Dr. Morris?
So I'll look into it, Dr. Lee. My understanding was that they were going to the governance committee for review. And if here, I think we at least ordinarily they should send to the faculty senate president and CC to the governance committee or vice versa. Connie, I think Patrick is not here as far as I know. Both Patrick and Connie have not received anything. Have you, Connie?
No, we did not receive anything. So
I'm actually concerned with whether or not this is something that the Senate is supposed to.
Yes. Yes.
Senate for all
Yes,
units,
that's right.
for all schools?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
That's-
actually a long.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
But, okay, yeah, I just wasn't aware that was part of, that
That's
was.
part of the discussion, yeah. Thank you.
Right. So
Any other questions?
the understanding is that we'll circle back on that and get the operating papers to the faculty senate. I apologize for that. Thank you for bringing it to my attention. The thinking is that you provide what your advisory thoughts on it that could be incorporated and perhaps moved forward. So we'll get those to you as ASAP. Okay.
I know, Scott, you have to go to any class. Do you have any question or reports?
Thank you so much, Dr. Lee. No, actually, I run off to my amazing Econometrics 3 course in a few minutes, so I'm just bowing out, but to say that also our Faculty Status and Welfare Committee and the Faculty Senate doesn't have any new update or new news itself that I know of.
Do you have any question for Chancellor Nan or Dr. Morris?
No, but thank you both for your wonderful inputs today.
Okay. Any other colleagues? For question, any question before? Khalid?
no questions. So I had my question via email to you. So we'll wait for our chancellor to give us an answer for that one.
Okay, it's worked out, I assume, right?
Yes. Unless you wanna open it now so we can discuss about it. So.
I will defer to you. I think if you have no question, that's fine. If you ask any question like that, or it's up to you. Otherwise, I will we will move on and we will.
Did you
Miss
email him?
Johnson and I?
Yeah, did you
Anything
email
else?
me a question?
Yes, it was about the greenhouse for the College of Agriculture, Life and Physical Sciences.
Okay, did you send that to that Austin?
I sent it to Dr. Lee, who probably forwarded.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yeah, I sent to both Johnson C and also CC to Austin.
Yeah, let me
Johnson and
look.
Dr. Mann.
I'll take a peek here.
I can brief you very quickly, you know, it's.
Okay, yes.
So a couple of years ago, when before the reorg, we had greenhouses, you know, lots of our classes at the College of Ag used to use those greenhouses to teach our students. It's like, you know, you have a mechanic, so you need a shop to teach your students, you know, how to repair cars and how to do everything. Those greenhouses, because they were very old, they were demolished, and we were at that time, so we were promised actually to have greenhouses where we can teach our classes again. So there was a state appropriation, I believe, that was made to those greenhouses. I think it was like 2 million or something like that. And the college raised, you know, $230,000. And since that time, so of course, COVID came and all the issue that we all know about. So, and then today we found ourselves with no greenhouses. So we've been taking the students out to the farms for some of those classes to teach them, you know, using the research greenhouses over there. But that's not, you know, that was a temporary solution. So some of the greenhouses in community colleges and in high school are actually better than even what we have. I mean, those greenhouses that if you talk to anybody in the whole nation, you know, College of Agriculture with no greenhouse, they will be like, you can't do that. I mean, all what we are doing, we are shooting ourselves in the foot again. So we cannot recruit because when students know we don't have greenhouses, where are they going to come? So number one, the ones that come under the assumption that we are offering those classes because we have greenhouses, they discover after that they have been cheated on. Sorry to use the word cheated on because that's the reality of things. And retention issue is a major thing. So some of the classes now we are not offering it, or the numbers you can see huge decline because we don't have those greenhouses.
Yeah, this came up very timely. This came up a couple of weeks ago before we went into our House hearing, and it's listed now on our ramp projects that's with the state. So to your point, it was trying to undo this web of like you said, some of these past promises and, you know, whatever people told you back then. It was kind of a false promise. There's nothing there to help it. So it's right now, and I just emailed you back and I copied Matt Bauman. He and I talked about this as we set the stage for the House hearing. He'll give you a little more detail into what we came up with. Bottom line is we're seeking some external support. As you know, whether it's state or federal, I think we even have Congressman Boss involved in this as well. There are a couple of people involved in this where we're trying to fix this. So it is on that radar. The question is just funding, as you would imagine, right? It's like where do we get it? How do we get it? And we needed it yesterday, but it's on the list. It's part of the tap dance when we go to Springfield. That's on there, as well as the communication building with getting the inflationary costs that come along with that, trying to get that knocked off as well. So I'm glad you brought that up, but it is on the radar. But Matt, wait for Matt. He'll give you even more information on this because I agree with you 100%. It's an area, it's a laboratory, it's whatever you want to call it, right? It's something that's needed. It's been needed for a while now.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Johnson and Connie. Any other question for either Chancellor Nan, Dr. Morris, before we move on? It's almost 2:00.
I have one if actually nobody does have one.
Okay,
So, Chancellor, I have a question for you. You know that everything is getting too expensive. Living costs, everybody know that we are, in the 5, 6, 7%. And when I say, salaries being negotiated at 2% increase, I feel like this is not enough.
I totally agree with you. If we had more, I get accused sometimes of, being a little too giving. But if we have more, I give it. But for me, it's selfish, right? It's to retain you. It's to not lose you to another university that may in fact pay more, which is why we're talking about the faculty internal equity study. That's phase 1. We're talking about phase 2, then how do we compare to the market? So that way we can bump those salaries up even higher to make it basically impossible for you to want to leave. That's the goal of these different phases that we've been talking about today. And the final piece is, we're trying to dig ourselves out of a pretty deep hole. And no, 2% is may fill your gas tank up, or if that, especially with gas and other costs. So, for us to really turn that corner, our state approach have to be where they are. We've got to get that 5.5 million. I need that to be able to adjust salaries, right? That's how we're going to adjust people in the money when we finally get these models figured out. That's where it's going. The other piece is obviously tuition revenue. Our tuition revenue for our enrollment can stay where it is and go even higher. We'll have more money to do that with. Those are the 2 pockets that help us do things like raises. The other piece we talked earlier, I think before you got on, was the merit pool. Being able to reward talent and retain it through merit. And that works at places. So we would bring that back, and that would be another tool in our kit to be able to help. So, between now and 2030, right? I know that sounds like a long time from now, but it does allow us every year for the next 7 years to be focused on the equity piece, right? So we don't it's not been a focus here. So we want it to remain a focus. We want to look at these studies. We want to adjust as we go. As Mark will tell you, we want to negotiate inside of our contracts that we have with our faculty, like we've been able to do. We want to make sure that there is still some growing power inside of their salaries so they don't leave and they don't feel like they're working here for free. So I get it. And that's kind of where we are to make it better. It doesn't happen overnight, but we've already been able to do some things because, we've been a little more efficient with our money, and we've been lucky. State's given us more, 3.8 last time, and helped us do at least a 2%. But I will never tell you 2% is enough.
thank you, Chancellor. Well, it's almost 2:00, 1 minute to 2:00. I know you have another commitment or meeting, and thank you so much, Chancellor and Dr. Morris. So we're going to, if you have nothing else to add, or Chancellor Nan, feel free to leave.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Great questions.
All right, you guys take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I know a couple of co-chairs, so they have class to teach. So hopefully today's our chance will be brief. Okay, very good. Okay, now the next one, number 5, which would be number 6. So reports, that means executive committee. Obviously, I did it. We can skip it. So the next one, election committee, and Bethany.
Yes, so we have gotten approval, so my committee has approved the FTE list, basically list of faculty that are eligible for being on Senate based on the criteria in the Senate operating paper. So we will be sending out nominations to almost all units. I think there's 1 or 2 that we we have someone for at least the next year. But we'll be sending out nominations on Thursday. So again, keep an eye out for those and try to encourage your faculty to nominate themselves or somebody else, because we have a total of 17 seats that we need to fill this year, which is a kind of a big number. So keep an eye out for that and we'll go from there. That's all I have.
Thank you. I know Dr. Morgan just signed in. Dr. Morgan? Okay.
Hi, Dr. Lee.
You just missed the show. Chancellor Nan and Dr. Morris they just left.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but we would like to welcome you here, and if my colleague do not mind, Dr. Morgan, whenever, I think first off, I'll give you an update, very briefly. Chancellor Nan and Dr. Morris pretty much did a presentation, especially Dr. Morris, did a presentation on academic suspension policy. So he's going to send to the faculty senator, and faculty senator is going to pass it to the undergraduate UEPC, Undergraduate Education Policy Committee. They're going to work out a resolution to vote on it. So originally, Jody told me that you will be here. So ordinarily, Chancellor Nan and Dr. Morris usually be here too. But today, I didn't realize Chancellor Nan came with Dr. Morris at 1 o'clock, and they told me that they have a meeting at 2. I have to early. Then we had to move the agenda around. So
Okay.
I'm
Fair
sorry.
enough.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
So
No
that's
worries.
yeah, that's the update. And second, do you have any update for us as a co-interim or academic provost in the new you have 2
No.
days.
No, nothing other than what Mark shared. Sorry, I was late. Jody had texted and said 2 o'clock, so I hurried to jump on, but I get it. They've already covered it. I'm sure Mark covered everything, so no worries. I appreciate it. I'll get out of your way and you all can carry on.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, Dr. Lee.
Sure. All right. Any question for Bethany? All right. If not, then we're going to move to the actually faculty status welfare committee. Scott left. I think he said he had no presentation, and Arish is not here. Then UEPC, undergraduate education policy committee, and the chair Jennifer Walker left. She didn't have any report. She sent an email, text message to the chat room. Chat message there. Okay. So budget committee will have Chowdhury. Dr.
Yeah. Mike presented what we had about the equity study in the last meeting. So after that, we are kind of finalizing the report, how to put it together before we draft the final version and share it with the faculty senate and the administration. So right now, that's what we are working on.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any question for Dr. Chowdhury? No question. Okay, committee on committee, Inan and Sunghi.
Hello, I'm going to do the report this time. So we have begun working with Josh to identify vacancies for university-wide committee volunteers. And our goal is to send this out to the university community this spring and finalize a first round of volunteers during our May faculty senate meeting. Several committees begin their meetings in the summer months and they ask for faculty senate volunteers. So we'd like to be responsive to these requests this year and be ahead of the game. And so, any vacancies that are not filled during this first round, then we can save that to the fall. And that's our report.
Go ahead. Anything to add, Sunghi?
Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. So any question for them?
Oh, I should mention that the AI committee the subcommittee that was proposed during our last faculty meeting or faculty senate meeting. This will be added to the list of committees that we'll seek representatives for as well.
Thank you. I think it was also announced in our last month's newsletter. And have you received any question for you guys? Have you received any volunteers?
Yes, we have.
Good. Thank you. Any more question for them? No. Okay, governance committee, I know Khalid, you are here. Patrick couldn't be here. Khalid, you have any report?
No, there is actually nothing. So we did not receive any paperwork, as you know, so from any of the schools or colleges. So there is nothing.
I know Bethany had a question. Previously, it was discussed, I think in the summer last year. Basically, we had a meeting between Khalid, Patrick, Mark Morris, and as soon as the faculty association process it, they send to us, and then we just have a quick turnout, especially affect the area related to the faculty members. So then governance committee do it as quickly as possible. That's what was it.
Okay, I guess my concern is looking at powers and responsibilities. It can be all up to interpretation, right? Because it's an operating paper, right?
You're right.
So my interpretation does not state that we should approve or disapprove any particular operating papers, but that would be an advisory committee.
Exactly.
So would we then have resolutions to approve them?
Yeah,
Or
I think we can, I would defer to the governance committee,
Yeah.
then they will recommend at least the faculty senate or will have a look. Some of
Yeah.
them, they may have no problem, just, it's like IME, the reorganization.
yeah, I guess my concerns is sort of along the same lines as constituency groups where I don't want individual schools to feel like they have to get Senate approval. Like there are so many groups.
No,
that
we
to
have
get
no
approval.
proof
Okay,
power, we just advisory,
That's
just give
fine.
another eye, that's it.
Okay, that was not my interpretation of the conversation, but that is good.
Exactly.
Thank
So,
you.
but to answer your question, really what matters for the operating papers is actually the approval of the faculty that belong to that unit. So that's the only thing that matters. The rest, it can be just, input, which means take it. If you like it, you can use it. If you don't use it. The way the operating paper are structured, you have, of course, the coordinator of the operating paper within that school who, together with the committee will have to draft, the operating paper for the school. So it gets sent to, once it's done, so it gets sent to several administrators for their input also, because there are stuff that, you need their input, whether they will agree on it or not, because it saves you lots of time, at the end. But what should happen is first you send it to the faculty in your own program for that school, and then you should have a meeting, you should have an input for all the faculty, and then a vote. So the vote is very important. That's where you decide, yes, this will represent us or this does not represent us. So if you have a majority vote, then you can move your operating paper for approval at that moment. But no one else, outside that unit can dictate how those operating papers should be done or what should be in them or what should be left from those operating papers. And I wish the same thing will apply for, the operating paper for the colleges, because we have seen, some of those operating paper, flying back very quickly, and there was no real input from the whole faculty, actually. No real vote. So, and that's something that bothers me a lot, that we do have, operating papers now for the new colleges, and there was no majority vote by the faculty for those operating papers.
And actually, I'm the chair of the SBS operating paper committee and doing that process at this moment. And that was actually a concern for us as well, because we wanted to have a copy of an approved CALPS operating paper. And we realized that we have no concept where that is, or if it's been approved, or what's in it or anything. So that's good to hear. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other question for governance committee? Okay, now, adult committee on institutional ranking and education quality. I will give a brief update, maybe then we'll add more. Currently, the subcommittees or groups, 3 groups, they have an individual meeting with their groups working on 3 areas. And we plan to have, in fact, we just sent out the doodle pool last week, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so we will schedule perhaps, common meeting, general meeting after, I think in the week of April 17th, 18th, 19th, or 24th. So that's pretty much update. Ina, you want to add anything to?
Yes, I would like to add, we've incorporated Dr. Morris and Dr. Morgan onto the subcommittees as well. We feel it's very important so that, they are informed and that they can help us, take charge and act in areas or facilitate changes in areas that we might not have any power to make changes into. So I think that's great. And I know Dr. Morgan's been more than helpful and interested in being engaged. So I think that's a very positive sign.
Yeah, very good addition. In fact, in addition, that means that's group 3 on faculty compensation, faculty quality, and faculty student ratio. And group 1 also invited Dr. Andrew Yupa to the committee, in addition to the current members, because we make sure we have faculty, students, and administration to work on the issue. Then group 2 also invited, as you may be aware, I think Matthew Tupik, the alumni office, as well the communication officer. I know Dr. Gina, I think Mr. Jim Porter, and pretty much that means, okay, we do need students because currently Isaiah is the only person. I asked him to send us 3 names. We're still waiting for 3 students to serve on this committee. That's pretty much the update. Any other question for me or for Yunan?
Yeah, I should add some of the faculty members that are on our committee are not necessarily people who are on faculty senate, but they were people that indicated an interest in serving on university-wide committees. So we reached out to them to see if they'd be interested. And that's how we recruited some new interest and renewed interest in the group.
Very good. Thank you. Any other business? Oh,
Actually, Dr. Lee, I have a question for you, and this is for my colleagues too. So is there a process in place, because I was awarded the Fulbright Fellow to go for 1 semester abroad, and it's going to be in the spring of 24. So is there a process by which I could be replaced for that semester by one of my colleagues, or how?
Yes, I think you can send someone as the interim to cover for 1 semester.
I mean, I will be, of course, I can do Zoom with you guys, but it's probably more productive when I have someone who, can attend on my behalf, in case there is no Zoom or nothing.
Sure. I think that should be fine.
Yeah.
Well, we have to, I'm sorry.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Lily. Sorry.
So what we have done in the past is that we have taken, a recommendation, usually from the person who is the in the role like yourself. And they've recommended someone who could be their proxy, if you will. And then we've run that through our committee and committee for vote, and then brought it back to the larger body
Okay.
for approval. So you don't begin thinking about that for the fall semester so that we can go through that process
Yeah.
before you actually leave.
Yeah, that's why I thought I would rather, start the negotiations and discussions now. This way we have somebody in place.
Yeah.
Instead of last minute things where, we do things in a rush and we might not have a good representation.
Well, we also appreciate that because it's work for us on our part. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bethany?
You took the words out of my mouth.
Okay, good. Well, new business, if there's no more old business, and next week on Tuesday, we have a special session, I think, a session from I invited a guest, that is public safety officer, Sergeant. I think the officer is Sergeant, right? Sergeant, right?
Yeah, I don't know who's gonna attend, either Chief Newman or Lieutenant House.
Oh, no, oh, okay, Lieutenant. Okay.
Yeah.
Lieutenant House, okay. Well, I do not know their rank. Yeah, well, I just called the mister. Yeah, Lieutenant, okay. The House, Lieutenant House or Chief Newman will give us a presentation around 20 minutes on violence prevention to the faculty senate. So just pretty much that's it. Any questions before we have a motion to adjourn the meeting? All right, today's meeting pretty good. I think we made it less than 1.5 hours, which is pretty good. So would you like to have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
Okay, thank you. Anyone second? Oh, we have 2 seconds. So see you guys around next week.
All right.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Bye.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I get all of my emails during the day during this meeting.
I've been answering those like while I was